Hello, in this video I will tackle the question of is Five Nights at Candy's better than Five Nights at Freddy's. In this video we will compare the first FNAF game to the first FNAF game. I might make sequels to this video where I will compare FNAF 2 with FNAF 2 and FNAF 3 with FNAF 4, but we'll see. Also, I will not use the remastered version of FNAF. I might compare FNAF Remastered to FNAF Plus in the future. I will compare stuff like gameplay, graphics, horror, and miscellaneous stuff. At the end of the video, I will tell you why I think one is better than the other. Also, remember that this video is just my opinion. Before we start, please like and subscribe. Let's start. The first thing we will compare is the gameplay. On the surface, both games seem like they have similar gameplay. But when we dive deeper, we can see some changes. FNAF has 2 doors, and so does FNAF. Okay, sorry for interrupting, but from now on I will call FNAF Candies because it just sounds better. As I was saying, Candies also has 2 doors, but also a ticket booth in the middle, kind of like a vent. The doors in Candies do not have lights you can turn on. However, you will be able to see the glowing eyes of most of the characters when they're at your door, so you know when they're there. However, in the later nights there are animatronics introduced that don't have glowing eyes, so you are unable to see them in your office. But there are cameras right outside your door so that you can see if an animatronic is there. This is really interesting because it forces the player to look at the cameras in order to determine if an animatronic is at their door. I feel like this is a really good mechanic. In FNAF 1 you just have to shine the light to see if someone is at your door. Candy's mechanic makes the player use more cameras in order to survive. Candy's also has the character Blank, which is basically the Foxy of Candy's. He acts basically the same, though I really do like his animation of him slamming the glass and destroying your entire office. The cameras in Candy's are dark. You can only see the glowing eyes of the animatronics through it. However, you can use the night vision feature to have the room light up. It consumes more power, however. Whenever I play, I just always leave the night vision on. Also, the longer the doors are closed, the more power they drain, which adds a little bit more depth to the gameplay. But the animatronics leave your doors pretty quickly. FNAF 1 also has some more mechanics that add more depth that Candy's does not have. Like for example, camera stalling. If you have your camera on Freddy, then he will not move. And if he's right outside your office and you have your camera on him, he won't jump scare you. Therefore, you stall him. This mechanic adds a lot of depth because now the player is not required to close the right door for Freddy, making the later nights and the 420 mode much easier. Foxy is also more complicated because in FNAF 1, the cameras prevent him from moving. If you constantly flip your cameras up and down, Foxy will not be able to move. This strategy is often used in the 420 custom night mode, because Foxy can drain a lot of power if he runs to your office multiple times throughout the night. Another important thing to note is the RNG. I feel like FNAF 1 is more RNG based, because the animatronics can stay at your doors for extremely long periods of time. But in Candy's, they tend to leave very quickly. Candy's and FNAF both have very similar gameplay, but both have unique mechanics that deepen their gameplay respectively, and make them stand out from each other more. I kinda like FNAF 1's more RNG based gameplay, because it isn't too unfair, but it's more surprising. I've never had a death in FNAF 1 that I feel like was entirely caused by RNG. But I feel like Candy's is way too easy. You're never put in a situation in Candy's where you have very little power left, which doesn't force the player to try and minimize the power that they use. I just feel like FNAF is a lot more tense and a lot more chaotic while still being fair. Personally, I prefer the gameplay of FNAF 1, but like I said, Candy's isn't far behind. The next thing we will compare is the graphics. These games have pretty similar graphics. This is because they both use the Click Team engine, and both use pre-rendered assets, which basically means that the game is rendering pictures of the office instead of the office, for example. However, both of these games have pretty different styles. FNAF looks more old and less colorful, while the pizzeria in Candy's looks more modern compared to FNAF. I really like Blank. Although he looks pretty basic, I love his concept of being like a drawing board for kids, so that they can draw on him. You can see he has many different drawings on him, which makes Blank stand out. He's a unique concept, though he is a concept that would most likely not work in real life these days. Let's just say that some people would get a little creative with what they would draw on Blank. Honestly, there's not much more to say. I think the graphics Candies has are better. There's more color in the game compared to FNAF 1. Does that make Candies scarier than FNAF 1? Well, we will talk about that later, but honestly, I just think that Candies has some very good models and character designs. I think Rat is super creepy, and the little penguin is a nice substitute for Balloon Boy. Next, we will compare the horror. Both of these games are horror games, obviously, but which one is scarier? Well, I guess we're about to find out. I'll start by first talking about FNAF 1. I think FNAF 1 is a very creepy game, even to this day. The game has an amazing atmosphere that fits the uncanny valley feeling it's going for. The animatronics staring at you in their cameras, their creepy uncanny valley design. Also, the ambiance in FNAF is terrifying. And more stuff such as the tension the game builds by having you manage your power, and the creepy Easter eggs such as the crying children and Golden Freddy. There's just so much that makes the first FNAF creepy, and I'm unable to go into detail in this video because then this video would be way too long. So I recommend checking out this video. In that video, I talk about the horror in the first FNAF game. So in summary, the first FNAF is just really creepy. From the visuals to the sounds, from the atmosphere to the gameplay. Candies is still scary, especially if it is your first time playing the game, but I don't think the game quite reaches the uncanny valley feeling of the first FNAF game. Though I must say, seeing Blank punching the window in front of you is terrifying, while also being extremely funny. The way the light flickers after he does it and how everything is destroyed. I don't think the atmosphere Candies has is quite as good as the atmosphere in FNAF. I also think that overall the character design in FNAF is way scarier than the character design in Candies. But the rat is still really creepy, and the way he just stares into your office. I think the office is actually a bit creepy because it's just so dark. And just like in FNAF, having the doors open, knowing there might be something out there right outside your office is absolutely terrifying. Also, I think FNAF has better jump scares, and especially the better jump scare sound. So even though I think FNAF is scarier than Candies, that doesn't mean Candies isn't creepy too. Candies has its own creepy elements, but I do think that FNAF is much scarier. The next thing we will talk about is just miscellaneous stuff. Miscellaneous stuff is basically everything that doesn't fit in the previous categories. I think Blank hitting the window in front of you is both creepy and really funny. I also like the Easter eggs in Candies. The Easter eggs in FNAF are made to be super creepy, like for example the endoskeleton staring at you, and Freddy trying to rip his own face off. But the Easter eggs in Candies are made to be funny and silly, like for example the Markiplier Easter egg, where you will get a 3D model of Markiplier on the computer in your office. I think this is a really fun Easter egg, and I like that Candies chose a different approach to its Easter eggs. It still has a creepy Easter egg, that being Shadow Candy, but Candies also has goofy Easter eggs such as Markiplier and the Origami Cat. I think this is a good balance to have, not taking yourself too seriously while also having some creepy elements. This specific teaser for Five Nights at Candy's with the blue puppet seems pretty basic on surface, but when you brighten this up, yeah, this is absolutely terrifying. The classic Scott Cawthon trick of revealing more when you brighten the image. Honestly, this render of Rat is really creepy. You can only see half of his face and his missing eyes, and the way he looks weirdly red. Honestly, it makes him look super scary, especially paired up with the creepy frowning puppet beside him. So in conclusion, although these games are very similar, they both have advantages and disadvantages compared to each other. I think Candies has better graphics. I do think that the first FNAF game is much creepier and has slightly better gameplay. I do think that both of these games are good, but I think the original Five Nights at Freddy's is better. While yes, it may have inferior graphics, I think that the horror aspect is more important because, well, these games are horror games and not visual showcases. So I think horror is more important than graphics. If you prefer candies over FNAF, then I totally get and respect that, because it does have some advantages over FNAF. Like I mentioned, it has slightly different gameplay, which some other people might enjoy more than the gameplay of FNAF. Feel free to comment down your opinion down below. Well, thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more content. I really appreciate you watching the video to the end. This was GameSpeaking, and goodbye.